Hi, everybody. My name is Mia, and I am the admissions counselors for our graduate programs here at Life Pacific University. And I am so excited to welcome you all to our webinar on strategic planning fundamentals. Professor Filippo has some great things to say about this, and I think this is going to be such an amazing opportunity for everyone to gain some valuable resources and insight that can aid in any organization. So without further ado, take it away, Professor Filippo.
Thank you. Thank you. Before I start, can everyone hear me? Is my voice okay? Everything good? Okay, cool. Yeah, this is a topic that I'm really excited about. It's something that's near and dear to my heart. Strategic planning, mission vision, and situation analysis. I think these are some of the most important concepts that we do, not just personally, but businesses as well. And so we're going to dive deep into what a mission statement is, a vision statement, why it's so important, and because a lot of people don't know what it is, right? So if we go to the next slide, so this is kind of the stages, right, as we're doing strategy formulation. And so as we're looking at our strategy and our execution process, it's divided up into several different stages. Stage one, we're taking a look at what's the strategy for the company, right? Where do we want to go? What's our vision? And a lot of times when you're trying to get investors on board for a company, they're asking about what's your vision? Where do you want to be in the next 5 years? Where do you want to be in the next 10 years? For you to get people to invest in your product, to get invested into your business or whatever you're trying to do, you have to have a vision, right? You have to sell that vision to people for people to kind of buy in. And so vision is extremely critical. Mission is really what you're currently doing right now, right? Describing what are your current operations? What are the customers that you currently have? What are you operating at this very moment in time? And then most importantly, too, is our values, right? As a company, you want to establish ethical values because the culture that you bring into your company is going to be what's going to attract people to that business. So if you create, if your values are not aligned, if you have a very toxic environment, you're going to tend to attract more toxic people into that environment, and your business is not going to be as efficient. Okay. So that's stage one is the most critical part is really going to establish the roadmap onto where your business is going to go, the trajectory in the next 5 to 10 years. Stage two is then going to be setting your objectives, right? What are your goals for your company? What are some of the objectives? What are your financial projections? What are your goals, 5 years? Are you going to pivot businesses? Are you going to acquire more mergers? Are you going to try to get more funding? Setting objectives is really critical. And investors want to know all of that. What are your goals? What are you going to be trying to do? And then stage three is really the pivotal point, right? Because as you're doing your planning, you're developing your roadmap, you're going to be taken on to the next stage, which is the execution stage. So stage three is really crafting that strategy to achieve your objectives, and moving the company along to the intended path. Stage four is where your execution all begins, right? You're really starting to do the business operations. You're starting to move along with your projections and your goals. And then stage four is really evaluating the external environment. Right now, we're in a time where there's a lot going on with AI technology. AI technology is advancing every single day. Currently, people say that we're in a recession. Inflation prices are going up. There's political situations happening, wars, tariffs, and so all of that are external factors that are impacting businesses today. And based on those external factors, these companies have to address all of that, and they have to change a lot of their strategies, not on a month-to-month basis, but on a very day-to-day basis, right? We're in a very uncertain time in terms of market conditions. And so analyzing your external factors, also some of your internal factors. Right now, companies are analyzing internally what can we do to be more profitable? And unfortunately, cutting costs, right? Laying people off. And so these are some of the things that these companies are consistently doing every single day. If we go to the next slide. So stage one, we talked a little bit about vision and mission, why it's important. So a strategic vision really is going to define the firm's direction. Okay, it's going to basically tell people on what your product is, right? What are you looking to do? And it's really what's going to sell people on whether they want to go into your business, whether they want to invest money into your business. And so vision, I would say, is probably the most important thing to like really bring people in. I use an example in my class for Travis Kalanick, who was a CEO of Uber. Back in 2014, 2013, he had this vision that, people were going to be their own like portable, kind of like taxi drivers, right? People were going to drive people around. They were going to get paid. It was an untapped market because at that point, taxis was the most common thing. But he had a vision where, people could, make money, extra money as a side hustle, even a full-time job, and make a living out of it and kind of be their own boss. So it was a very enticing vision for a lot of investors, and it really changed the way, our whole market economy works now, right? The gig economy, as we call it, is probably one of the biggest economies right now. It's a billion-dollar industry, and all because he had a vision, not knowing where that vision was going to open up, right? It opened up opportunities for DoorDash, Instacart, Lyft, all sorts of these different opportunities for people to make more money based on just one company's vision. And that's just one example. There's plenty more. But basically, this is what leaders are looking for, right? The intended position of the firm, where are they going to go, where are they at today, and so the strategic vision is really the stepping stone. It's the anchor that pulls everything in on a company moving forward. And then as you move along, right, the next 5 to 10 years, as your company gets bigger, you always want to stay and look back at where you started, right? What was your original vision? It's really going to be kind of the guardrails to making sure that you're aligned and going, forward to the projection that you wanted to go. So that's going to be stage one, the strategic vision. And next slide. So mission versus organizational vision, right? Like I said, a lot of people get these two confused. Okay. We know that vision is something that, we're planning ahead where we want to be. And a mission is really to seek the answer of where are we at now? What type of business are we in? What's our purpose at the current moment? And usually this is defined into three different elements. Really, it's talking about what are our current product and our service offerings, what are customer needs that are being served, okay, and what is our company identity? And here I give an example of AT&T's mission, right, is to inspire human progress through the power of communication and entertainment. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple, but you could kind of grasp on what they do, right? What is their current business? So inspiring human process through the power of communication. Communication, we know, probably telephone, and entertainment, where they also dive into subscription services and things like that. So we already know how the company what their current offering is. So that's just an example. And if we go to the next slide, a vision again seeks to answer the question, what do we want to become, and focuses on the future business scope. And so here again, an example of IKEA's vision, right, is to create a better everyday life for the many people. Now, this one is one of those things where it's very broad, and we're going to take a look on the next upcoming slides. We're going to take a look at different missions and vision statements, and some of the downsides, right? What are some of the advantages, pros, and cons of each one? But this one, again, you really don't know what the company is. Create a better day for an everyday life for the many people. That could be so many different things. And so, but that's just an example of what companies, what are some of their vision statements. Go to the next slide. So here, I decided to put everything, the different characteristics on what makes a proficient vision statement, right? The first one is a graphic, right? You want to be able to paint a picture of the type of company, right, that you're trying to create, the market position. It has to be very detailed. You kind of have to put whatever's in your brain into investors' heads, into people's heads, so they can kind of really see what you're seeing. So it has to be very detailed, graphic. Also, at directional, it has to be forward looking. Okay. If you try to sell a vision to somebody we're not that profitable of a company, maybe we'll get there, maybe we won't. You're not really projecting confidence. You're not projecting a forward moving direction. And investors want to do what? They want to make money. They want to make profit. And so everything that you have aligned in terms of a vision statement always has to be forward looking. And I take that personally, not just from a business perspective, but also in our personal lives, right? We always want to look ahead. We always want to look forward. So looking forward, describing the strategic course, right? And how you're going to get there, the kinds of products that you're going to get into, the customer technology, and all of that stuff. The next point is being focused, right? It has to be specific enough to provide the people that work in your company guidance on making day-to-day decisions. And also, it has to be very focused on, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is what we need to do. And so people know exactly, right, how you're moving forward. It has to be very tight and focused. But it also can't be to the point where it's not flexible enough, especially now. We don't know what the next 10, 20 years is going to look like, right? There's a lot of companies that have changed their business models, that have changed their visions and mission statement because they had to adapt to the current market and the way it is. And the biggest example I give is, for example, Facebook, right? Facebook started out as a social media platform by Mark Zuckerberg. and very, very famous platform, really popular back in the 2008, 2009. And eventually they had to change their business model. Facebook is still around today, but pretty much no one ever uses it. The company saw that there's opportunities in terms of Instagram, WhatsApp. People were, diving more into these apps and they were becoming more popular. So the company had to pivot their business model. They had to acquire some of these companies to stay afloat. And they had to change the way the whole company is viewed, right? So they let go of the social media platform and started focusing on VR technology, right? Creating VR spaces for people that work at home remotely. And so right now, they had to rebrand themselves, and today they're known as Meta, right? So their focus right now is VR gaming technology, VR workspace, creating a social media ecosystem for people to kind of like Ready Player One. I don't know if you guys seen that film, but similar to that, right? Next is feasible. Okay. You can tell somebody, right? Like next year, I want my company to make $10 billion, but is that really feasible? Probably not. So it has to be, your goals they have to be out there, but they also have to be feasible. They have to be reachable. Next is desirable, right? Indicates why the directional path makes good business sense. People are not going to be into your company if it's not something desirable. Right now, what is desirable? AI technology. People, it's the craze right now. It's what everyone's talking about. Perplexity, ChatGPT, Blue Ocean, all sorts of these different AI softwares and apps. And so really is what people are most desiring. So your product has to be desirable, again, for people to want to invest in you. And then it has to be easily to communicate, explainable in 5 to 10 minutes. I say that's even too long. What I say, if you go to Shark Tank, those people have like, I think 60 seconds to really tell what they do, right? And that's the reality of it. When you have an opportunity to really, really discuss on what your business is, people's time is valuable. A lot of people don't have 5 to 10 minutes to like talk and understand like what your business is. It has to be very something that you can communicate very easily. It has to be very explainable, detailed, but to the point, right? People want to know, okay, get to the point. So it has to be easy to communicate and very short and focused. So those are just some of the different characteristics of the vision statements. And if we go to the next one, and these are some of the shortcomings, right? Some of the issues that may, have with some of these vision statements. So, for example, we took a look at, I believe it was IKEA's, right? Too vague or incomplete, very short on specifics about the company and where it's headed and what the company is doing to prepare for the future, right? Could be very vague, like making a better tomorrow. Okay, that's great and all, but how are you going to do that? What do you do? Too vague. Another one is not looking forward, right? It doesn't indicate how the management intends to alter the company's current product. Where are they looking to expand? What's the technology focus? It could also be too broad. I always put vague, incomplete, too broad kind of in the same category. Could head almost in any direction. Okay. You also you want to be able to be focused in a way, but not too focused where you kind of pit yourself in a corner. So too broad could be also not great. Bland, uninspiring, right? Using the right words, using the right sentences, it makes a big difference. A lot of the time you can communicate your idea greatly, but if it's not put together in a specific way, maybe people won't relate to it as much. So it can be bland, it can be uninspiring. Not distinctive, that's also another one. A lot of companies share vision statement, especially if they operate in the same market. And the biggest example is like the beverage industry. There's so many different beverages, but a lot of their vision statements pretty much align into providing, cold, hot beverages to customers. Okay. That's not distinct. There's a lot of products out there that do the same thing. And another one is too reliant on superlatives, right? Not saying anything specific about the company's strategic course and beyond the pursuit. And again, just using too many superlatives. If we go to the next one, next slide. Yeah. Thank you. So here are some of the examples of strategic visions and how well did they measure up. So I grabbed a couple of ones, Whole Foods, Dr. Pepper, Caterpillar, Nike. Whole Foods, as you can see, it was way too long for it to fit. And that's just right then and there, that's too long for somebody to take a look at that vision statement and want to read it. What's good about it? It was forward looking, it very graphic, very detailed. It could be focused, but again, the biggest thing is that people's attention span usually, most people's attention span is from 7 to 15 seconds. And if you can't capture somebody right away, you're gonna lose their attention. And so it's very long, not memorable. Next one, Dr. Pepper. This one is again, like I mentioned, right? Operates in the beverage industry, the leading producer and distributor of hot and cold beverages to satisfy every consumer need anytime, anywhere. That's great. It's focused, it's desirable, it's easy to communicate. You know exactly what they do. But the biggest thing is that it's not distinctive. A lot of people do what they do. Okay, so what's there going to be their major advantage? And most people would say it's their taste, right? Very few drinks will taste like Dr. Pepper. Next is Caterpillar. Our vision is a world in which all people's basic needs, such as shelter, clean water, sanitation, food, reliable power, are fulfilled in an environmentally sustainable way, and a company that improves the quality of environment in the communities where we live and where we work. It's graphic, it's desirable, right? We all want to live in a world where, everything is environmentally sustainable, no pollution. That's incredible. That's great. But again, too broad. There's just that's that a lot of companies want to do that, right? A lot of eco-friendly companies, more companies now more than ever are trying to be environmentally sustainable. And so again, how are you going to do that? Too broad, too reliant on superlatives, and it's not distinctive enough. It's not providing a statement where you know exactly what's their differentiating factor compared to the rest of other companies that are trying to be environmentally sustainable. Last one we have is Nike. This one fosters a culture of invention, create products, services, and experiences for today's athletes while while solving problems for the next generation. Again, forward-looking, very flexible. It gives them room to operate, if the market ever changes, to kind of pivot strategies on where they want to go. But it also, again, it's too vague, it's not focused enough, and too reliant on superlatives. And then if you go to the next slide. So here, how do you break down the mission statement, right? Here are some of the elements. First, you want to address who are we, right? Who are our customers? What is our operating philosophy, basic values, ethics? What are the core competencies or competitive advantages? What are our responsibilities with respect to being a good steward of human or financial environmental resources? And one of the biggest examples I like to give my class too is I talk about Apple. There's a great author. His name is Simon Sinek, and he talks about the golden circle, right? Apple, I believe, I think it was the first company to actually break $1 trillion valuation, which is incredible. It's a number that I can't even fathom, but $1 trillion valuation for a company. And a lot of people want to understand, like, what did Apple do that is so different from anyone else, except, besides they have an amazing talent of team. It's really it goes down to the core of their why. Right. It's the core belief and purpose or cause. Their why is really challenging the status quo. Like if you ask Tim Cook, like, what is the why of Apple? It's to challenge the status quo and to think differently than everyone else. A lot of companies will operate on what they do, right? They know what they do. And that's the result of the type of products that they do, the services, and they know how to do it, right? They know how to distribute those products to consumers and all of that. But a lot of them don't know their why. And so Apple starts with their why, challenging the status quo, thinking differently. And how do they do that? By making products that are beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. And what they do is computers, iPhones, and other electronics. And the extension of that, again, is financial resources and money and all of that. And really, that's the differentiating factor where, some of these biggest companies is that they know what their why is. And then the how and the why and then making money and all of that is just the extension of, where their core values really started. And if you go to the next slide. So here are some examples of the mission statement. Patagonia, build the best product, cause no unnecessary harm, use business to inspire and implement solutions to the environmental crisis, right? This is a great example of a mission statement. Again, that they're looking we know Patagonia, right? They do a lot of these snow mountain type of gear, and all of it is very eco-sustainable. So that's an important thing to them, right? They want to make sure that they're sustainable, environmentally sustainable, that none of their products are chemically or cause any unnecessary harm. So that's a core value for them. And if that's in their mission statement, that's great. It's very to the point. We know exactly what they do. American Express, we work hard every day to make the American Express the world's most respected service brand. Again, good example, but we would like to have more information on, okay, what is American Express like? What is their services? What do they offer? And for those that don't know, it's a credit card company. Warby Parker, To offer designer eyewear at a revolutionary price while leading the way for socially conscious business. This is one of my favorites because it really talks about in detail what they're trying to do, what they do, and what they're trying to do. So they offer designer eyewear, right, glasses, at a revolutionary price, at an affordable price, while leading the way for socially conscious businesses. Again, being sustainable and socially conscious. Honest Tea, create and promote great tasting, healthy organic beverages. Nordstrom, give customers the most compelling shopping experience possible. And Prezi to reinvent on how people share. So these are just some of the examples. If we go to the next slide. So mission width and stability. So this one I talked about, right? If the mission is too broad, it will be meaningless. It can lead companies to really operate in a gray area and not know where to go if it's way too broad. But again, if it's narrow, if it's very, very focused, it can put a company in a very tight spot or put them in a corner where they can't really pivot. And in today's world, it's essential for you to have that flexibility to expand your operations and to pivot if you need to. It can also cause companies to miss major opportunities, markets that may be untapped. An example I give is the railroad industry, right? Overtaken by other modes of transportation and travel as cars were being created and airplanes and all of that stuff. And the mission stability also refers to the frequency of modifications in the mission statement. So the mission statement should not change drastically. It should stay reasonably the same since the beginning of the company's conception. Go to the next slide. So customer-focused mission statements. Right now, we're operating what I like to say is called the customer relationship era, and this is something I discuss in my marketing class. So marketing has changed over different times. We've had the production era, we've had all sorts of different eras, but now most companies are focused on is customer relationship, is really making sure that customer loyalty is strong, right? Companies depend on customer loyalty, brand loyalty. So, people that love Nike, they're most likely going to buy just Nike products. Apple is an example of this, right? Very customer oriented. They create an ecosystem to facilitate iPhones, iPads, all of that stuff to make sure that you stay with them. And so all of the mission statements, again, is focused on customers and providing value to customers. That's what customers want. The biggest example is Southwest Airlines. Okay. Mission of Southwest Airlines is dedication to the highest quality of customer service delivered with a sense of warmth, friendliness, individual pride, and company spirit. Customers want to know what's in it for them. Okay. What type of products are being offered to them? What can I get out of this? How can you provide value to me? Like, why should I pay for your business? And all of it starts with companies saying, this is what we offer, right? This is what you can get. Next slide. This is another one. Johnson strengthens its credo. So JJ was a pioneer in developing like mission statements and values in 1943. They were, very well known for getting feedback from employees, how to making their company better, emphasizing putting consumers first, addressing the needs of employees, addressing how they can improve its communities and sustainability, and also looking at the importance of innovation and generating fair return for stockholders. Now, a lot of people will have mixed opinions about Johnson & Johnson and the pharmaceutical industry, but historically, it's always been a company that has done really well and have tried to like put their consumers first for most part. Next slide. So situation analysis. Now we're going to be talking about, we just discussed the mission statement and the vision statement, and now we're going to take a look at situation analysis, or SWOT, as we call it. Really what this does is looking at the internal environment, it's looking at the customer environment, the external environment, and some of the challenges as well. So internal environment, you're looking at your workforce availability, right? The amount of employees that you hire or the amount of people that you have working for you on your payroll. What's the competitive demand, right? This is economics, like looking at supply and demand. How much demand is there for your product is going to be basing how much supply you're going to be exporting out to your market. It looks at the age capacity of technology, right? What are your current technology? Are you aligned with the current market technology? Are you behind? It's looking at financial resources, how much capital companies have. A lot of companies can have a lot of assets and resources, but maybe they're not liquid enough. Maybe they don't have enough cash flow to stay afloat for short-term obligations or long-term. And also looking at internal political strife as well, and the current marketing objectives and how they're performing. Next is looking at the customer environment, right? The needs of the target market. What customers' needs are changing constantly, right? Customers, what they needed 10 years ago is not what they need today. And their preferences are changing as well. As prices are going up, people are becoming more picky on where to spend their money, if they're going to spend their money at all. And so right now, it's at a time where companies are really changing their business model to try to get customers to buy their product. But again, with market inflation, with recession, it's a very challenging time for a lot of people. And so that is also becoming a challenge for a lot of companies to try and acquire their customers, as people are very hesitant on spending money here and there. The external environment, this again, like we were talking about, inflation, recession, Trump's tariffs, political stuff, all of that impacts businesses in a tremendous way. Again, recession, the most common thing we talk about in economics, where the economic GDP of a country is down on two consecutive terms. Basically, signaling that there could be high unemployment, there could be all sorts of different things that are going to be impacting overall spending in the country, which impacts businesses as a whole. Political legal tariffs, right? As products become more expensive to ship, companies are going to have to charge more because they're going to be paying more for transportation and all of that. So all of this analyzes the external environment and how that's impacting businesses as a whole. And then also some of just the challenges that we're currently facing too, as there's way too much data. Right now, humans are at a point where we have so much information. We have more information now than any other time in the history of the universe. And so it's just a flux of information, a flux of data just going in and out, which, is pushing us to, different, more problems and challenges as well with data fraud and all sorts of different things. Next slide. Here's a SWOT analysis. So this is, if you were to do a SWOT analysis, it's very simplified because in business and in economics, we have a Latin term called ceteris paribus, right? So basically, this is kind of just simplifying everything, because if we were to take everything into consideration that goes on into an actual market, like it would be impossible. So this is just basically a simplified version of looking at the internal stuff that we can look at a company, the external environment, and basically breaking down to what are our strengths, what are our internal strengths. Maybe we have a lot of financial capital, we have a lot of financial resources, maybe we have a lot of talented employees. External opportunities, what are some of the external opportunities that we can capitalize on? AI technology right now is a big thing. Maybe we can invest in AI technology. It also helps us take a look at some of our weaknesses internally. Okay. Looking at our financials, looking at maybe our marketing is not well enough. It looks at all of our weaknesses and it helps us basically make decisions on how to best move forward with the company. It also takes a look at external threats. Companies, to stay alive, they have to constantly adapt. They have to constantly stay competitive. And we know there's been several different companies that went out of business because they were too slow to adapt, or other companies came into the market and they did what that company does and they did it better and more efficiently. And so those are just kind of the breakdown on how you would look if you're analyzing a company as a whole. Next slide. So again, the core concepts is the macro environment and the pestle analysis. So just kind of like we discussed, the macro environment, it encompasses all the stuff that we talked about. It takes a look at technological factors, environmental factors, legal regulatory conditions, political factors, economic conditions, and we use the pestle analysis to analyze all of those six major forces. Next slide. So here are the six components. Like we said, political factors, right? Right now, with the Trump administration, there's a lot going on, a lot of different changes, budget cuts, departments of education, VA, all sorts of different things are happening within the political realm. Economic conditions we also discussed as well: recession, inflation, prices, technological factors, AI, social, cultural factors. Right now, where people are trying to save more, the environment as well, global warming, all of that stuff, and the legal and regulatory factors as laws are changing, federal laws are changing. These are the major six components as you're doing the pestle analysis, is what you would take a look into consideration. Next slide. And this is just kind of a visual representation, right? And kind of for you guys to see what a company would look like in terms of what the industry they're in, how the competitive environment operates, what the macro environment. So the smaller circle, the yellow circle, is really looking at the stuff that impacts the company very specifically very closely on a day-to-day basis. So substitute products are things that could be happening at any moment. Buyers from that company, suppliers, the supplying of shipment, rival firms, new entrants, all of that stuff. And each company, depending on what market they're in, is going to be very different. So, for example, like the car automotive industry, they would not have new entrants in the yellow portion because there's a lot of barriers when it comes to the automotive industry. First, there's a high startup cost. A lot of regulatory things that you would have to do to even establish an automotive industry company. So every market, every company is kind of just different. This is just an overview of what it would look like, but every company has a different external environment and analysis. And next slide. So here are some of the potential issues to consider, potential internal strengths. You could have financial resources. There could be a respected company brand image. A lot of companies will rely on their brand loyalty and how much people are attracted by their brand. And the biggest example I give of this is Disney, right? Disney is a multi-billion dollar company. And for whatever reason, no matter how much they raise their prices on their parks and their theme parks, people are still gonna go because people love Disney, right? They've established a brand over 100 plus years that people just, they're Disneyphiles, as we call them. So respect the company brand, agile and able to address disruption. Again, this is when it comes to flexibility, right? If you have the flexibility to be mobile, which the biggest example I give is a lot of car companies right now, they're going into electric. They're investing more and more into electric because the goal is by 2000, I believe 2040, is that the country is going to be ideally a fully run electric country, right? Electric cars everywhere. And so they're pushing more and more for electric businesses to invest into that. Customer brand advocacy and the economies of scale. And the economies of scale is a concept we talk in economics as the bigger you get, the less expensive it is it's going to be for you to operate. Usually because if you're a smaller company, you're going to have a lot of upfront costs getting people on board. And most of the time, companies that are starting, they have very limited funding. And so for them to get to the point where they're big enough, it offsets their costs and they actually start making huge profits and become profitable. Potential internal weaknesses, the lack of strategic direction, that could be an issue, limited financial resources, lack of focus, weak spending on R&D, research and development, potential external opportunities, right? Rapid market growth. Markets are being created every single day. There's always going to be a new market for something, and they're usually growing, especially with technology advancing as well. Right now, we're seeing a lot of people use AI technology to improve their businesses, writers, coding, all sorts of different things. And within that, they're creating microcosms of like different smaller markets to be efficient. Complacent rival firms, changing customer needs, tastes, new products, process and discoveries. Some of the external threats, right? Entry of foreign competitors, that's always been a thing, and it's going to continue to be a thing. Companies are always going to start competing. And as consumers, we want that. As a business person, probably not. But for consumers, it's the best thing, right? Because if we have competitors, that means that there's competition of price. So there's no monopoly. And so consumers are getting the best deal out of competitors. Introduction of new substitute products, which is starting to become more popular now as mainline products are becoming more expensive due to inflation prices. Substitute products are becoming that other best alternative for a lot of people. Product life cycles declining. This is another thing where products that we used to use are slowly dying. And the biggest example right now is just the regular gas cars. We're seeing a more and more shift to electric cars like Rivian, Tesla, and a lot of companies are just totally changing their model more into electric vehicles. The changing of customers' needs, tastes, and all of that. So this is just again are some of the common potential issues that businesses consider as they're moving forward. Next slide. So strengths and weaknesses, again, exit because actually we can skip this slide. We discussed on this one. So the basic this one we're talking about airlines. So big carriers have problems with internal efficiency, labor relations, and they're very slow to respond to customer change. So some of the biggest ones like Delta, American, United, and the example I give is that, for example, United had an issue where they had an issue on one of the Boeing fleets, right? So a lot of these companies, Delta, American, United, they have really two major companies that provide supply airplanes to them. It's Boeing and it's Airbus. And Boeing had an issue where a lot of their, airplanes got grounded, and that affected a lot of the major airline companies where they couldn't fly those planes because of FAA regulations. And so that's just an example that a lot of these companies, they're very inefficient in that way, and they're not able to change or pivot as much. Now companies are changing their model. A lot of the airline industry is buying a little bit more of each supplier to kind of spread out and diversify their risk. Uh, but before then, that was a big issue. What also did is it provided a lot of opportunities for low cost carriers, right? Where they could be flown to routes that are not traditional by other major big airline companies. And so this provided opportunities for Southwest to jump in, Frontier, JetBlue, Spirit. I know people have a lot of mixed opinions about Spirit, but they provide opportunities for people to be able to fly at a very affordable rate and be able to go to locations where bigger airlines wouldn't be able to address. So next slide. So again, opportunities and threats as we take a look, we want to look at the competition, we want to look at our customer base, we want to look at our economic current market, what it's looking like. We also want to take a look at the political stuff that's happening. As a business owner, you want to take a look at what is the political climate, especially like state, federal, all that stuff, technology, social, cultural. These are all the things that you have to take into consideration as a business. Next slide. And here I give an example of home entertainment. I don't know if any of you remember, but growing up as a kid, Blockbuster was like my go-to place. It's the place where I used to love. It was a retail store where you could do DVD, VHS rental, and it sounds very archaic saying it now, but it was really an amazing experience. But Blockbuster is like the number one example of a business not being able to adapt to the market. Blockbuster was huge back in the early 2000s. They dominated the DVD rental store. You would go there, you would pick out a DVD, you could trade it back. They had membership. They were really doing well. But people slowly started, the social economic change started happening. People's tastes changed. People did not want to go to the store all the time. And that was really the start of people wanting to stay more home and have services being provided to them at home. And that's where Netflix came, right? Netflix, started off as a DVD by mail where you would go online, you would order a mail on DVD. And then, slowly they, changed the way to streaming. And then Blockbuster at that point was way too late on the game and they ended up going bankrupt. And Netflix just basically took domination of that market and really set the whole market of streaming services what it is today. It's all because of Netflix and what they're doing. And they were the first ones to actually establish original content, and they started, first streaming platform to win a primetime Emmy, which is pretty awesome. Next slide. And again, this is just a visual representation of what the SWOT analysis will look like and where your company would fall, whether you're matching the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. Next slide. And some of the 6 key issues in the SWOT analysis, right? Looking beyond your resources and product offerings to solutions and customers' problems. Success depends on the ability to create capabilities by matching strengths and opportunities. Um, a lot of times firms can convert some of their weaknesses into strengths by investing in key areas. And this is where companies are doing a lot of their work in research and development. A lot of the time, every single year, more and more companies are establishing higher budgets for research and development because they want to stay ahead in terms of new technology and what's being supported and what customers want. Um, so yeah, and opportunities and threats should be assessed again, outside and in. As a company, as you're growing, you always want to take a look at the external economic outlook and what internally is happening in your company to be profitable. And I believe, is that the last slide? I believe that's it. Perfect timing. It was like 12:40.
Thank you so much, Professor. Um,
Yeah.
this was such a great presentation. And if you guys have any questions and you want Professor Filippo to answer them, now is the time to pop them into the chat. But while we're waiting for your questions to come in, I just wanted to let everybody know that LPU is so proud to have an amazing Master's in Business Administration program. It is one of the most affordable programs in the state of California, and we love that we get an opportunity to teach business administration and teach it from a Christian worldview. And we would love to invite each and every one of you to take part in that program. So if you're interested in learning more information about that program, please feel free to reach out. And I'm also going to put in the chat a link for you to request more information about the program so that we can reach out to you and get you signed up. So if you guys have any questions, you can go ahead and put them in the Q&A. And we'll just give it 1 second. We also have multiple undergraduate degrees offered in the way of business. We have our bachelor's in business administration offered on our San Dimas campus. And we also have a bachelor's degree in organizational management, which is offered online. So if you are someone who online learning is a better option for you, it is a great program and it's a great opportunity to learn from the comfort of your current home, job, or ministry. I see someone's raising their hand, but if you could just put your question in the chat, then we'll be able to answer it. Oh, here we go. Somebody says, great presentation. Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in. If we don't have any questions, then I'm going to go ahead and end our time together. Thank you all so much for joining. And like I said, please reach out for more information on our master's programs.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.